Good afternoon. Thank you for spending the time to hear about the changes professional football has gone through over the last 50 years since the inception of the Super Bowl. The game itself has withstood the test of time, but only through the evolution of it has this sport survived. Starting in 1968, the NFL AFL World Championship was renamed the Super Bowl. This championship game was to be the ultimate championship between the NFL and AFL pre-merger in the 1970s. The game itself is adjusted to the wants of its viewers. Offenses and defenses are different, ushering in an era of high scoring games. Money is different now, also. In the beginning, players would need other jobs in the offseason in order to survive because their salary was on average $20,000. Meanwhile, we can find ourselves clamoring over who's going to break the record for largest contracts in NFL history, in the 100 million mark. The clearest change over the years in professional football is the average player size. Back at the beginning of the Super Bowl era, we saw average people be the stars. Now we observe massive, hulking super athletes who run fast, hit hard, and can get hit hard, and get up and act like nothing's happened. Since the inception of the Super Bowl, much has changed in the sport of football. Over the years, coaches have learned you must adapt in order to stay on top. This has caused playbooks to evolve. Coaches at the beginning of the Super Bowl era would rarely throw, seeing no point of it to it, and often ran the ball out of an archaic formation. Formations like the wing T, pro, power I, and the wishbone have been replaced with the spread, shotgun, and pistol, and have allowed teams to create more explosive offenses, which has led to larger passing, rushing, and scoring numbers. According to Bleacher Report, though, we no longer see the true spread offense. The spread has evolved over the last 20 years and become the spread option. This offense allows teams to have run pass options, and create confusion in defenses it plays against. Of course, the evolution of the offense brings us to how best to defend. There's been an increase in the non-traditional defenses in the NFL. This includes, instead of the classic 3-4, 4-3, or 5-2, we see fronts that have fewer players like the 3-3-5, in which there's an emphasis on pass defense with 5 defensive backs on the field at a time. Now, this is one case, but many teams run variations of this out of their base formation, which is more traditional, but there's still a major emphasis on defending the pass instead of the run. Defensive players are now more athletic from the line all the way back to the defensive backs in order to increase their chances of successful defense against the offense. This plays into how the playbook is created because if you don't have athletic defensive ends to rush the passer or athletic linebackers to cover tight ends, who are becoming increasingly more active in passing offenses, you will fail. With these changes has also come the increase in salary due to the devotion needed to play the game. At the beginning, support for professional football was not nearly as strong as it is today. Thus, contracts were significantly smaller and players often had to have another job in the offseason. Many players did not see an increase in pay until the sport was popularized during the early 60s. The biggest contributors to this were television contracts and the growth of the NFLPA, which was the players' union in which they fought for better paying conditions. The average contract today is over $2 million, but in the past, contracts were small. And that was because the level of involvement teams got from players was also very small. Teams would pay players small salaries that could not sustain them for the year. So in the offseason, instead of working out and preparing for the next season, players were often working in order to keep up with the bills and other things that they had to pay for. Contracts in the late 60s were about $25,000. Meanwhile, today's average contract is about $2.25 million, according to NFL operations. The players now are much different, though, than they were in the 60s. As fans and spectators of professional football, we are blessed with a very high-quality product on the field. This can be attributed to the abilities of the athletes on the field. NFL players at the top of the scale when it comes to athleticism. They are bigger, faster, and stronger. In the past, NFL players were known as everyday men. They were normal guys who had jobs on the weekends, and on the weekends they would play professional football. As the years went on, they became bigger. Average player in the 50s was under 6 feet tall and under 245 pounds, but nowadays the average size is around 6'1" and 210 pounds. Now, this doesn't include the offensive line. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen are usually expected to be around 6'3", 6'4", and over 300 pounds. So the size has changed how the game is played. Players are leaving college and attending a combine or having pro days in order to be assessed on physical and mental abilities. Interviews are conducted in order to test players' knowledge of the game, and players often spend their off-season training in order to be stronger and faster for the next year, because there is always someone that will be stronger and faster than them. In the end, the NFL has been a mainstay of American sports. Though it is 100 years old, the NFL is an ever-changing entity. The plays are always changing to compete with the times. Contracts are significantly larger than the contracts of the early years. The size of the players has also changed from everyday men to massive super athletes. The NFL is constantly evolving. And while I tell you about the many changes over the years, I am sure that we will see many more until the day that it folds, if it ever does.